Okay, welcome to our first lesson for World History 2020-2021. We're going to be starting with the first unit, which is called The Peopling of the World, and we're looking at prehistory to 2500 BC. So when we look at this time period, we're looking for when scientists are searching for when did humans begin? When is the first human being walking the earth? So they define that prehistory time as the time before the invention of writing, or about 5,000 years ago. And what they're looking for are clues. There's two groups of scientists that can give us clues. The first is an archaeologist who study bones and artifacts and human-made objects, which we'll look at today. The second is anthropologists, and they study culture or a group's way of life. So think about for a second, what would they find here in our world 5,000 years from now? What would they find in our rooms? What would they find in our kitchens, in our workplaces? What kind of tools and things would they find, or food, or things that we enjoy in our spare time? That's what an anthropologist studies. So when we're looking at that, we're looking at the very first groups found. So Mary Leakey, who is a renowned archaeologist, her team discovers a prehistoric set of footprints in Tanzania in 1978. We call this the Laetoli footprints, and they belong to hominids. So hominid's a kind of important word for you guys to remember for today. A hominid is a creature that walks upright. It doesn't mean that they look like us. It just means that they walk upright instead of on all fours. Around 1974, they discovered Lucy. Donald Johanson finds a female hominid in Ethiopia. They name her Lucy after the Beatles song Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds, and she's about 3.5 million years old. This is an artist's rendition of what Lucy would have looked like down here in the corner. A hominid, which is what Lucy was a human-like creature that walked upright, and that helps them to travel distances that they couldn't before when they were on all fours. The earliest hominids lived in Africa 4 million years ago. We're going to see a group that develops an opposable thumb, which thumbs are super important. If you try to write something or open a door without an opposable thumb, that becomes pretty difficult. Early hominids like Lucy are a species of Australopithecus. So the plural of that is Australopithecines. I want you to try and say Australopithecus. It'll impress everybody at dinner tonight if you say it. And Lucy, as I said before, is 3.5 million years old. She has a very small brain. This is her skull. She lives somewhere in East-South Africa, and she is the common ancestor to all her early humans. We don't believe that Lucy used any tools because she doesn't have the ability just yet for that opposable thumb to grip it, but she is the great-great-great-great-great-grandmother of all human beings on this planet. So this is the skeleton they found of Lucy without the entire skull there. So not a lot of pieces, but we learned a lot about the way that she walked, the way that she ate, and how she interacted with her environment when scientists were able to kind of piece together the missing bones in Lucy's skeleton. So we have two phases we're going to look at. The Old Stone Age and the New Stone Age. So the Old Stone Age, which is about 2.5 million years ago, you guys know what this is because we call it the Ice Age. It was really cold temperatures, large glaciers, and humans at that time had hunting and gathering. So they had a very close relationship with their environment. They knew what to hunt, what to eat. They knew what nuts, berries, and fruit and grains that they could consume and which ones could kill them. They hunted buffalo, horse, bison, reindeer, fish, and shellfish. And if you think about it, if any one of us was dropped off into an actual wilderness area where there was no human communities anywhere to be found nearby, would we know all the things that we could eat in our environment? Are we that close with our environment now that we understand those things like they did? We know that they used tools, fire, and language during the early Stone Ages, but that came during what's known as the Neolithic Stone Age, or New Stone Age. Neo means new, and that lasted from about 8,000 BC to 3,000 BC. And this is when something really important happens. They shift from the hunting and gathering to keeping animals or domesticating, taming animals, and growing food on a regular basis. They no longer moved to follow the herds. So instead of them following animals, now they can actually stay put in certain places and provide food all year round. So they're kind of taking control of their lives, and their communities are going to get a lot bigger. Because when you're hunting and gathering, you can only provide food for so many. But when you're growing food and taming animals for food, then your communities can get much bigger because you know you're getting food on a regular basis. So the next group there is the Homo habilis, and this is the first group that used tools. Lewis and Mary Leakey discovered 2.5 million old hominid fossils in Tanzania. We call them Homo habilis because habilis means skill or tool, meaning they could use those. So that's when we start to get the opposable thumbs. And you can see some of their tools here that they used. Like we have a plate, obviously. They would use bark for their berries and things like that. They made arrows, they made axes of some kinds so that they could hunt and gather the things that they needed in their environment. Next comes the Homo erectus. It appeared about 1.6 million years ago, and that just means that he was upright completely, using intelligence to develop his technology. And when we say technology, we don't mean like an iPhone. We mean ways that he interacted with his environment with what he had. So we know that he developed tools to dig, scrape, cut. They become very good hunters. They're the first hominids to use fire, and we do believe that they developed some sort of language. We're not talking about spoken word at this point, but we're talking about maybe a low growl or grunt to communicate with each other. They are the first group to also leave Africa and move to Asia and Europe, and we'll see that map in a few minutes. The next group is the Neanderthal. They're the appearance of modern man. Neanderthals get a bad rap because they're considered, we associate them with being somehow not as smart, but they were very powerful. They had very thick bones and muscles. They were found in Europe and Southwest Asia 200,000 years ago to about 30,000 years ago. But this group is the first group to develop religious beliefs and perform rituals like funerals and marriages. They lived in caves or shelters made out of wood and skin, and they still did move around quite a bit. The Cro-Magnons are going to emerge, and they're actually going to push the Neanderthals out about 40,000 years ago. The Cro-Magnon are identical to modern humans. As you can see the picture there at the bottom, they hunted in groups. They were much better hunters than the Neanderthals, which is why they were able to kind of push them off and kill them off. They advanced skill in spoken language, so they're starting to actually use words at this point. And their population grew very, very quickly because they could communicate and they could hunt so well. And the Neanderthals die off at that point. From the Cro-Magnons, we go to the modern person of you and I. We're considered Homo sapiens sapien. There is a distinction in there of Homo sapien, but I didn't even put it on this chart. Sapien means wise. So Homo doesn't mean what you think it does. It doesn't mean same. It actually means human. So the first group that we had was the human who uses tools. The second is the Homo erectus, the human who is standing upright with arms and legs in modern proportions and using fire. Homo sapiens have a large brain growth, the Neanderthals, the Cro-Magnons, and then what we are today. You and I are considered Homo sapiens sapien, meaning very wise. Our brains are much bigger than any of the ancestors, and we're able to do cognitive, critical thinking more so than any other level that we saw here. So you see where Lucy is at the Australopithecus over here on the left. So this is where Lucy is. And you can see that even the shape of her brain, that our brains have actually gotten bigger as time has gone on, all the way up to the Homo sapiens sapien. And we've gone more upright, bringing our shoulders back, and our legs and arms became more proportionate. So here with Lucy, her arms and legs were about the same length. You see that a little bit with Homo habilis. Right around Homo erectus, you start to see how the arms are shorter than the legs, and that comes to all the way to the modern time period where our arms are much shorter than our legs. So I want to show you real quick a map. And this kind of gives you an idea. Everything started here in Africa, okay? So when they found Lucy, Lucy is right here. They found her near Ethiopia. Or the footprints that Mary Leakey found were down here in Tanzania. So all the first discoveries were here in Africa. And as time went on and we get to the Homo sapiens sapien, we move out of Africa here into Europe. Eventually, because of the land masses, they're able to get over to North America and then down to South America. So that's where our kind of heritage comes from at that point. So you guys are going to do an activity today where you're going to make a chart, and I'm going to show your activity. You're going to make a chart of all 6 classifications and tell me a little bit about each one. So click on the next assignment on your whiteboard in the classroom there on the slides, and it'll tell you exactly what you need to do for your assignment. Don't turn this assignment in. Hang on to it because we're going to be using it on Thursday when we start using Classcraft. So that's it for today. Bye, guys.